we're going to continue with our users can create project story. We still have a few tasks left. All right, so we are working on this on submit function for an add a project form. So here is the issue that I see. I'm going to refresh the page so we get our original data back, because remember, we're just using some fake data from that's hard coded into the projects component. So I open up the dropdown, and then I go ahead and write project G, and then I say this is the description of project G. If I create the project, my accordion stays open and I want it to close. So it took a little bit of searching, but I went ahead and looked, and I found this index prop, okay? And I appreciate it because it's going to help me be able to control whether or not this accordion is open or closed, okay? So the index is going to be the index of the expanded accordion item. So if you think of the accordion like an array, this is going to be index 0 that's open, okay? Because we could have more accordions here, but we only have one. So that's index 0. So I'm going to start with that here, okay? So I'm going to say, first I'm going to use allow toggle instead of allow multiple. Allow multiple means that multiple accordion items can be expanded at once. We just don't have that. So we only have one item. So we're going to use allow toggle instead. I had copied a accordion with multiple items before. All right, so then the next thing we're going to look at is the index, okay? So I'm going to add index equals 0, okay, to my project. And then you will see that it is open. So if I refresh this page, it's open, because what this is doing is this is saying the index of the expanded item is item 0. Okay, well this is item 0, so it's saying start with it expanded, okay? We don't want to start with it expanded, okay? We want to start with it closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a state. I'm going to say const is open, and then set is open, and I'm going to use state false, okay? So when we start out and we load this component, it's going to be closed, all right? So what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to say if it's open, well, if it's supposed to be open, then I'm going to return a 0. Otherwise, I'm going to return a 1, okay? The 1 is saying that the next item in the accordion should be expanded, but we only have one item in the accordion, so that's going to make it closed. But as you can see now, I'm clicking on here and it's not opening because we are saying it shouldn't open, okay? So we need to edit this state here in order to make it dynamic. All right, so when I click on the accordion button, all right, that is when I want it to switch to open. So I'm going to say on click, we want to set is open to whatever the opposite of is open is, okay? We want to toggle is open. All right, so I set is open. Now it's true, so that means 0 should be expanded. I set is open to false. Now is open is false, so it's 1, okay? And I can do that as many times as I want. There we go. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to, on my submit, okay, I want to set, and I want this to be done on the response, because I want to, or at least after we make the call, because I want to make sure that it is, that I have a name filled in, because I don't want to submit with nothing there and have it closed. So I'm going to add it below here, and I'm going to say set is open to false. Okay, so now let me refresh the page. we should have closed. That makes sense. I'm going to open it, and then I'm going to say project G. This is the description of project G. And then I'm going to create the project and the button closed and my project G added to the list. So that is great, and that's exactly how I want it to work. All right, so now we need to add in some validation, okay? So I have is error will show if I don't have a name, okay? But I want it to not allow me to actually submit it, okay? So I need to go ahead and write if name is not equal to an empty string, then we can set is open to false, okay? We can go ahead and move this up front because we still want to submit name clicked is true, okay? And then I'm not going to console log those anymore because that's working properly. And then we want to add this set projects in here. So we only want to set the project if the name is not equal to an empty string, okay? We also only want to set the name back to blank and the description back to blank if the name is full. And we also want to do that, okay? So let's give this a try now. If I just click create project, it's going to yell at me and say username is required. Okay, so if I fill in this is my description, and try again, it's still not. Project H, and then I click it, now it works. Okay, so that is good. All right, so we are gonna now switch over to doing the back end work. Okay, we have the front end looking pretty good. We need to actually be able to create a project and add it to the database, okay? So in order to do that, we are going to need to create a module, all right? So I'm going to create a folder to start out with, and we're going to call it projects, okay? And then within the folder, we are going to have another folder called entities, all right? And then within the projects, we are going to have projects.module.ts, all right? I'm going to go ahead to users module and just copy that, and then we will edit from there, all right? So we don't have a user service, we don't have a user entity, so we can take this out and this out and this out. All right, and we are going to call this projects module. All right, we can also then add a projects.service.ts. All right, and so we're going to the service, and I'm going to copy this and paste her in. All right, this is called projects service. And then let's go ahead and import the injectable. All right, perfect. So in order to use this module and service, we need to have the user be logged in to create or edit or do anything with their projects. So we are going to have the route come through the auth controller, okay? So we have to add a few items in the auth module and controller in order to do it, okay? So let's go to the module. You can see that we're importing the user module, so we also want to import the projects module. All right, and in the service, you can see that we are going to add the projects service to the constructor function. And we're going to save that. Okay. So now let's switch over to making our entity. So we want to mirror the way we do it here. So I'm gonna open that and create a file, and it's going to be project.entity.ts. All right, let's go ahead and copy this and add it in here. So it's going to be project. All right, and then I am going to go over to my routes and database tables. We haven't been there in a while, but I'm going to find my project table, and I'm going to follow the schema that I already laid out. So we have an ID, which is going to just be the primary generated column. All right, we have a user ID, which is going to be a foreign key. All right, so I'm just going to actually say user ID foreign key because I'm going to look that up. And then we are going to have project name, which I think at this point I'm actually going to just call name because we're in the table project. And then this is going to be description, which is also a string. And let's look up type ORM optional column. All right. So it looks like we can do nullable true. All right. So we're going to add this to the column, and then we will add our question mark to say it's optional. All right, let's return, and then that should be it. All right, so I also need to then look up how to make the nested, or how to do the foreign keys with chakra or with type ORM. So we're going to say type ORM entity 1 to many. All right. It says perfect. So this is a photo entity, and there will be many photos to one user. So one user could have many projects. So this is actually quite perfect. So we're going to say many to one. And then we are going to user, right? And then we're going to say user dot projects. All right. And then we are going to say user is equal to the class user. Okay, so it's saying property projects does not exist on user. That's okay because we have to add the opposite to our user entity. So we are going to have a one to many relationship here. So one user can have many projects. So I'm going to do project. And then we're going to say project dot user. And then we are going to do projects. It's going to be an array of projects. Let's import and save. All right, let's look at this. Now it's not mad at us, so that's perfect. All right. So hopefully that works. It looks like we have an error message here, so we're gonna have to hunt down where we missed. Okay, auth service. So let's go to our project service. Our project, okay, yeah, so we forgot to add our project service as a provider and our project service as an export. Right now it's not mad. And then we need to do the type orm module dot for feature. And I don't remember what the syntax is. So yeah, array with project in it. Okay. One last piece, we need to go ahead and create a constructor that injects the project repository into the service. So we're going to do that. And we are going to import. This should be project. And then this should be project. And we should call this projects repository. All right, I think we are all set to now run our database migration. Okay, so we're going to create a terminal. We're going to CD into the API, and then we are going to open up our package JSON. Okay, so we are now going to do create project table. All right, and then we can do npm run migration generate. All right, so it looks like migration has been generated successfully. So let's go ahead and look. Yep, looks like create project table. Let's look at what it's doing. It's adding a table project. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Okay. Oh, so it's also altering our table user to add the created at timestamp, which in our last feature could be used to make the reset password token a little bit more secure. So if you want to use that, you can add that too. Okay, so then we are going to do npm run migration run. All right, so just to reiterate, migration generate is going to look at all of your entity files, and it's going to look for any differences between what's in your database and what is in your entity descriptions, okay? It's then going to create the commands that are needed to make those changes, okay? Migration run is going to run those commands, okay? So you need to do both migration generate and migration run anytime you're making a change to the database. All right, so now let me pull my database up. All right, and you can see that. Let me go ahead and refresh. All right, so now we have a user table, a project table. So let's look at the user table. I don't see the created at, so does that mean it dropped the created at? Oh, okay, so I had added the column created at, but then I dropped it when I did. So I added it for our Zoom session, and then I dropped it when I changed branches and just did the feature myself. So that is why that is there, okay? And that is also why you don't see the created at here, which is fine because we're not using it in our code on this project right now. All right, so then we can go into the project table, and you can see we have ID, name, description, user ID. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and we created a project database table. All right, let's go ahead and create our create project API route. Okay, so that will start at the auth controller. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Go back to the API. Okay, and so I'm going to add it here. I'm going to use guards, auth guard, because you should only be able to post a project if you are signed in. All right, so create project, and then we're going to say create project. All right, and we're going to have a body, and we're going to have a project DTO, which is going to be of type project DTO. All right, and then we are going to return this dot auth service dot create project, and we're going to pass in the project DTO. All right, so let's define our project DTO. We're going to export class project DTO, and we are going to say we have is not empty, and it's going to be name, which is going to be a string. Okay, we're also going to transform it because it's user input and it will show up on the screen and end up in our database. All right, then we are going to also add a description, but we do not need it. It's optional. So we could also add the is optional. All right. And let's see how else we defined. And then we also want our user ID. All right, so ID is going to be number, and we need this to be is not empty. All right. So now let's go to the auth service to create this function, async create project. And then we're going to be passing in project DTO. All right, and then we are going to say return await this dot project service dot create project DTO. All right, it's mad at us because that doesn't exist in the project service yet, but it will. So then we're going to say async create project. We're going to pass in a project DTO of type project DTO. And then we are going to return await this dot projects repository dot save. And let's go ahead and look at what we would be saving it under with our database up. Okay, so we're going to say name description, and then we're going to say user ID. All right, so description equals, okay, and then name is equal to all right. Nice. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm just trying to see what we said, so it just says it's saving. I think we're going to return the list of all of the projects, though. So then we're going to do, let's do async get all get user projects, which we're going to pass in an ID, which is going to be a number. And we're going to say return await this dot projects repository dot find by, and then we're to say user ID equals ID. Okay, so I think we need to do find by where what if we just do find? The type ORM syntax can get a little bit tricky. All right. So type ORM find by foreign key. Oh, okay. So it has to do with like the way the syntax works. Okay, so we got to do where, and then because it's a foreign key, we're going to say the user, and then the user ID is equal to ID. Okay, so we are going to say await this dot project repositories dot save, and then we're going to say return await this dot get user projects with project DTO dot ID. All right, so let's give it a try. I am going to, let's make sure it mapped. Yep, auth create project mapped. So that's good. So then we are going to make our Axios request here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go to the index route, and I'm going to get an Axios request with an authorization token. And I'm going to return here. So I'm going to say const token is equal to local storage dot get item token. All right, and then let me go ahead and import from Axios, and then I'm going to go ahead and do Axios dot post. All right, and then I'm going to post create dash projects. Okay, and then I'm going to post the, let's see how we wanted that structured. So we want name description ID. Okay, so name description. And then we're going to do ID, which is what? Looks like we don't have it here. So we're going to go ahead and let's go to the projects page, which projects page uses the data. So then we are going to pass in user ID is equal to data dot. We aren't sending the user ID. Okay, so we can either go and add the user ID to the field there, but I'm also just kind of curious at this point if we can use rec and body in the same one. So I'm going to give it a try. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. Okay, so I'm going to do console.log project info. And I'm going to say project DTO. And then I'm going to say console.log rec. And then I'm going to do rec.user.sub. All right, and then I'm not going to do anything else. All right, so let's add a project. We do test project, test description, create project, 404. All right, so let's take a look. Bad request. Data cannot post not found because we called it create projects and it's just called create project, which is kind of nice that it was just a little typo. So let's go ahead and go back and do create project. All right, let's refresh. Let's Let's do test description. And then let's press create project. All right. ID should not be empty. Okay. So that is from our DTO. We said in the DTO that ID was coming through and it is not coming through. So let's try this again, but we got to it that time. So that's exciting. So let's do test description, clear my console, create project. Okay. Response data. ID should not be empty. All right. Okay, so now it's mad that, okay, in project service, it's mad that we use the ID. So we are just going to comment this out. We're gonna get there though. All right, let's try again. Project G, description. I feel good about it this time. Yes, all right, perfect. So we do get our subs, so we don't have to do any hacking to get our user ID because we can just get it through the request. And we also have our project and description. Okay, so we're gonna just have to change the way that we did this a little bit, which is fine, but this will teach you, right, that you want to test every step of the way. I did way too many steps in one, and then I ran into a bug. And now I'm gonna have to go and fix things, okay? So I'm gonna actually separate this here, and I'm gonna say project DTO.name, project DTO.description, and then I'm going to say rec.user.sub. Okay, then I'm going to head over to the auth service, and instead of this, I'm going to say name string, description is string, and user ID is number. Okay, and then I'm going to use name, description, user ID here. And it's mad at me because I need to edit this function then. So see, if I would have just tested each step along the way, then I wouldn't be rewriting all my code right now. All right, and then let's uncomment this. All right, and then name is just going to be name, description is just going to be description, and user ID is just going to be user ID. And then we are going to get to user projects by user ID. I don't know why description is written twice. So let's say name is string, description is string, and user ID is number. All right, let's move on then to the front end, and let's console log our response if we haven't already, which we are hoping is going to be our list of projects, which should just be one project. So let's do console.log response, response.data. All right, let's take a look. Refresh my page. Let's do project G. This is the description of project G. Post. All right, let's go to the console, and response is an empty array. All right, let's go to our database so we can start to figure out where things went wrong. All right, so it doesn't look like things went wrong in terms of adding, because that is good. but it does look like the user ID didn't get saved, which is why nothing got looked up. So we need to go ahead and figure out why this didn't get saved. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's a foreign key. So we want to do type ORM, add row with foreign key. Dun, 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 dun. All right, and just scrolling here. So I'm curious if I can do user ID. Okay, let's try that. Oh, looks like we got something back. All right, let's refresh this. All right, I'm gonna delete this row. All right, beautiful. Okay, so now that we have a project, okay, we can go ahead and get rid of or replace our fake data on the front end, okay? So we will go ahead and move on to that in the next video because I feel like this one's already been too long. So I will see you in the next one.